Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, Adam, do you have announcements that you need to make?
I don't, and if I do, we'll do it after class.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for checking.
Yeah, good. Then let's begin. I'd like to begin with a little bit of a talk because in the previous session, I spoke about being a monk, which is a huge part of my education around meditation and working with my mind. But I also want to bring to you science, and in particular, psychology, because as we're developing the orientation towards being kind to ourselves, at least that's what we'll be doing for the first portion of these set of sessions before we build up to a workshop. I want you to understand that our brains have a negativity bias. That means it's easier for us to see something wrong than to see something right. The phrase negativity bias showed up in the scientific literature for the first time in 2008 when there was a meta-analysis done of many studies. And I want to give you an example of some of these studies. For example, they had people just like you and me sitting in front of a computer, and your job is to touch the space bar when, as you're looking at a sea of faces on the screen, all of them are happy except for one. And when you can see that one and pick it out, you touch the space bar. And then the next image comes up and it's a sea of angry faces and there's one happy face. And your job is to find the happy face when you see it, touch the space bar. Well, it turns out that we human beings are much faster at finding the one angry face than the one happy face. Not only that, this one amazes me. Images of faces are flying by on the computer screen. And you actually can't tell if the face you just saw was a man or a woman, happy or sad, or any other specific detail. And yet there's an EEG net over your head, which is picking up the electrical impulses of your brain. And if you're like me and most of the rest of us, your amygdala is firing when it sees an angry face that you can't even recognize because it's going too fast for consciousness, but not too fast for that part of you that is able to see something that's scary and react. So this negativity bias, it exists for all human beings. Think about it this way. Let's say you and I and the rest of us were sitting around a campfire 50,000 years ago, and we hear a twig snap in the dark behind us, and you get up and you say, I don't feel so comfortable. I'm going to go into the cave. And I say, oh, don't be silly. It's our neighbor Thor. But no, it's not. It's a saber-toothed tiger, and whoom, that saber-toothed tiger eats me up. So my genes gone from the gene pool. We have the genes of smart people like you who are a little apprehensive, and they went into the cave and they remain safe. So this negativity bias has existed as long as human beings have been developing, and it helps us survive. So when we use that lens of negativity to look at ourselves, it is way, way too easy to and unrealistic, by the way, to be upset with ourselves, to feel disappointed, to feel discouraged. And that is what we're going to be working with in these next sessions, is counterbalancing that negativity bias. I want to clarify that if you feel discouraged about yourself or upset or angry, that's not your fault. That's how the human brain is. Fortunately, the human brain also has the capacity to learn, to create new neural pathways, and that's what we'll be doing today. Not so much brand spanking new as much as deepening the ones that we started working with on Tuesday. So here's one of the ways that I want you to think about what we're doing. We're creating an inner ally. You may already be aware of your inner critic. Okay, that's part of the negativity bias. What we're going to do is develop an interior state that supports you, that encourages you, that has a sense of goodwill towards yourself. Okay, the last piece of science that I want to bring into this part of the discussion has to do with how self-compassion, which you could consider as a form of kindness, is actually more productive than self-criticism. In a study that was done on people who were losing weight, one group learned about self-compassion, the other group didn't. Both groups were attempting to lose weight and keep off. The group who learned and used self-compassion lost more weight and kept it off longer than the other group. So I want you to understand that science is on your side. It's on the side of developing a robust inner ally who doesn't deny that you make mistakes, who doesn't ignore the fact that you are ignorant about a lot. But those are not the rocks that are being used for self-criticism. They're just part of the human condition. All right, so we'll be doing a brief hatha yoga practice, followed by a brief pranayama practice, followed by a meditation that takes some of what we did on Tuesday and amplifies it. So for this, would you please stand up? Make sure you have room around you so that you can move. And I'll meet you back in about 45 seconds. Okay. So if you have a yoga mat, great. If you don't, not a big problem, because we won't be doing a lot on the floor today, but a little more than on Tuesday. If you do have a mat, I'd like you to stand in front of the mat or at the front of the mat. Use your eyes to ensure that your feet are about hip width apart and parallel. And close your eyes for a moment and just feel what it's like to stand right here, right now. There's pressure at the bottoms of your feet. And tuck the tailbone just a little bit to lengthen the lower back. And draw the tops of the hips back just a little to help engage the core. The lower ribs are slightly drawn in, another version, another aspect of engaging the core. And then your chest, your heart is lifting up. And that extends through the back of the neck. So your head is tilted down slightly. Okay. And hands come into prayer position before your heart. And make a kind of a dedication internally to yourself to give the next 45 minutes your best attention, like a prayer. Okay. From here, let your hands come down all the way or down to your sides. And as you raise them up, inhale until they're up over your head. And then as you exhale, let the hands come down the center and let your knees bend. In fact, go down as far as you're able to until you have to lean over and take another breath in as the hands come all the way to the top. When you're at the top and you've finished with your inhalation, let the exhalation go as the hands come down the center line, reaching as low as you're able to. And when you're ready, begin another great inhalation and come up like an oak tree, like an aspen, like some beautiful tree coming out of the seed form, and continue that same process for about a minute where, yes, beautiful, yes. So you're syncing your breath and your movement. If you're able to, touch the ground in front of you and lift up from that tiny shape. Nice. Nice. Okay. And with the next exhalation, come down, let your head bow towards the floor and straighten your legs as much as you're able to. Have your hands on the floor or on your shins. And now attempt to straighten your back. And as you're straightening your back, extend through the spine. So the sits bones are going back and the top of the head is going forward. And you're using a lot of power in your hamstrings and your buttocks. And then from there, release to the floor and take one knee back. It doesn't really matter which knee you take back. Then press yourself so that your torso is upright over the knee. And for now, put one hand on your belly and one hand on your chest so that you help sustain this upright quality in your torso. And then lean forward off of the back knee and aim the stretch into the hip flexor of the leg that's kneeling. But you're not arching your back here. I want you to continue to sustain a strong core, engaged core, without an arch. And at the same time, aim the stretch into the hip flexors. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. Hands come to the floor. The other foot and knee join the first one. Kneeling back, out of tabletop. Bring the other foot forward into the same posture, other side. Use your hands again to help sustain the upright torso. Engage the core and then lean forward, aiming the stretch to the new hip flexor. Keeping the core strong and steady. As much as you're able, release through the hip flexor. Three, two, one, and release. So bring the hands down, bring the forward knee back with the back knee, and come into tabletop. So what I'd like you to do is practice the mobility in your shoulders. So your arms don't move, but your torso does, because you're extending up and out of the shoulder joint. So explore what up and out of the joint means, and then what concave or caved in means, and then find the middle way. It's not out of joint, and it's not caved in. From here, curl your spine to one side and see how much you can look over your shoulder. At the same time, press your hips in the same direction that you're looking, just to see if you can see that hip. And stay in this interesting kind of curved spine for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Come to center, and then the other side. And come back to center. So we'll do a few cat-cow poses. I'm thinking you know what they are. If you do, please begin. If you don't, then follow my visual and my auditory guidance. So for cat, press your chest up, curl your tailbone under. Remember how we were talking about being out of the shoulder joint? This is where you deliberately go outside of the shoulder joint, pressing up, and then to the extent you're able, gently draw your head down and back towards your knees. So ideally, that's done on an on an exhalation, and then the opposite on an inhalation. So the tailbone now goes skyward, the hips are tilting way down, the chest is pressing towards the floor, and there's an upward press through the arms, the chin lifts, and feel that arch through as much of your back as possible. And that's usually done on an inhalation. So explore what it's like to sync up your breath and the movement, exhaling into cat and inhaling into cow. And this is not something that I'm asking you to be an expert at, but I am interested in you exploring that quality of syncing your breath and your movement, plus articulating your spine in ways that you might not in your daily life. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, excellent. So from here, would you come back into a posture where you can be relatively quiet and still so that we can practice meditation together? So in the yogic tradition, the asanas are there to help the body be prepared for meditation. There's a further and subtler preparation, which is to breathe in a very specific pattern. And so using the breath in ways that help connect us to the subtler dimensions of our body is called pranayama. And we'll be doing a simple practice today that involves kombuka, or sustaining, not breathing. So you might imagine at the top of your inhalation, you don't immediately exhale. That's right. And at the bottom of the exhalation, you don't immediately inhale. In these places where you're not breathing in and you're not breathing out, I want you to focus on having the body be as relaxed as possible, so that there's not this gripping the breath. Now, this is an unusual way to breathe, and so it might feel A, awkward, B, uncomfortable, and both of those are okay, as long as you're not in pain. I want you to extend your capacity for discomfort. I don't want you to automatically reject something because it's uncomfortable. This practice that we're about to do has built into it some elements of discomfort. And as you expand your capacity to bear it gracefully, simultaneously there arises a greater capacity to be with the ordinary discomforts of your life without getting triggered, without becoming reactive. So I'm going to explain this procedure because it's pretty simple. You inhale for 4 counts. You hold or retain the breath for 4 counts. You exhale for 4 counts. You sustain the empty breath for 4 counts, and then you start over. You could easily imagine this as a square because everything is in 4 and we start where we end where we start. However, you could also imagine it as a circle that's rolling, because in a way, the breath, even though the next inhalation, how should I say this? The next inhalation is the first one of this moment. You've never had this particular inhalation before. And to develop the capacity to be awake to the newness of what is, we're practicing that right now in this pranayama. Okay. So the last thing I want to do is give very brief description of your posture. Use your torso in an upright position. Ideally, not using the back of a chair. Ideally, if you're sitting on the floor, your hips are above your knees. That ends up being a little bit more comfortable for most of us. If you need to shift position, that's 100% fine. So I'll begin with the counting, and then after a while, I'll leave it to you to do your own counting. I want to bring to your attention 2 little tips for the counting. For example, when I say inhale, that's already 2 counts. 3, 4. Retain, 3, 4. Exhale, 3, 4. Sustain, 3, 4. In. Okay, so I'm hoping you get the gist of that. So that's why I call it 4 counts. Each of those words is 2 syllables. That's 2 counts. And when I repeat the word to myself mentally, then I'm less likely to get lost. So that might be good for you too. All right, so let's begin. Please exhale. Inhale, 3, 4. Retain, 3, 4. Exhale, 3, 4. Sustain, 3, 4. Inhale, 3, 4. Retain, 3, 4. Exhale, 3, 4. Sustain, 3, 4. Inhale, 3, 4. Retain, 3, 4. Exhale, 3, 4. Sustain, 3, 4. Now you do it on your own, adapting the counts to suit you. For the last minute of the practice, continue the breathing and the counting, and be as relaxed as you can in your body, and as open and spacious as you can in your mind. Okay, well done. Well done. Releasing the exercise of breathing in a very specific way. Let your breath return to normal and shift your posture in any way to help you be more comfortable if needed. And so we're going to revisit your intention to make the best use of this time together. The best use of this time doesn't mean perfection or being without thoughts. The best use of this time is really about being fully present, noticing the thoughts without being carried away by them, or using the thoughts to your benefit. Okay. So I'd like you to check your posture. And check that your shoulders are over your heart, which is over your hips. And your shoulders are drawn back just a little, opening your chest. And your ears are over your shoulders. And your jaw muscles are relaxed. So there's a little bit of space between your upper and lower teeth. And your eyes are closed or half closed. And let your hands be wherever they'll be comfortable. Right now, this is enough. And enough is a feast. This is the direction of peace. So bring one hand to your belly and one hand to your chest. It's likely the movement that comes with inhaling and exhaling will be more obvious to you. Now, Go into your chest and feel the warmth and pressure of that hand. Imagine that's the hand of someone who loves you. And that's the warmth and pressure of love and touch. And let that sense flow into the lower hand and belly. The belly feeling loving touch. You're welcome to keep your hands here or let them go to wherever they'll be comfortable. And imagine yourself in one of your favorite places. There may be many, but just pick one for now. And check if there's already a sense of expansion and uplift or buoyancy in your torso. And imagine that walking towards you is yourself as a child, a happy child. And imagine that this child stands before you and you are seated so that you're eye to eye. And this child is glinting with happiness, sparkling eyes, wide smile, maybe missing a tooth or two, and not embarrassed at all. So happy to see you. And your heart begins to flood with love. Affection billowing out of you towards this child. And you put your hands on the child's face or on the child's arms or on the child's shoulders, and you say 3 simple sentences. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you love your life. And you see the child drinking in these words and your affection. The child closes his or her eyes to be more focused, and you repeat these sentences on your own, in your own mind, letting your heart be articulated through these words and touch. You can feel the child saturating with your goodwill. You know you mean every word. And the child opens their eyes. And that is a signal for you to stop. And the child beckons so that you turn your head and bring your ear close. The child's hand comes up to its mouth, and then the child says into your ears, "May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you love your life." And you can feel how the child is speaking to itself as an adult. The child's true and innocent hope for a happy, healthy life, vibrant, full, and rich. The child's goodwill reaches through the years and touches you profoundly. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you love your life. This may be the first time that you feel a responsibility to that child. Yes. 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 You reconnect with something so innocent. The desire to be happy. You reconnect with the urge to be healthy. You reconnect with the child's dream and aspiration of loving life. Already, the child is absorbing into you. Now, there's not you and the child. There's not two. And the child is fully absorbed into you. And as you touch yourself now, you're touching the child too. Inside, you feel the innocence of the child's wish for happiness and love. And so you say to yourself now these three simple sentences. And choosing whether you say may you or may I. Perhaps trying them both on and seeing which one resonates more. This is not the idle wish of something impossible. This is a profound desire. It's okay to want to be happy. It's healthy to want to be healthy. It's kindness to yourself to want to love your life. Savor and steep in this gentle kindness arising from the inside, from deep within. I'd like you to split your attention now. Continue to say the sentences to yourself and listen to me. That this kindness is being offered to yourself even when you don't sleep well. Even when you feel crabby. Even when you're worried about money. Even when you're worried about your health. Or someone else's. Even when you're upset with the leadership of your company, or your state, or your country. Even when you feel confused. Even when you feel hurt and you don't know why. Even when you feel sad. and hopeless. Even when you feel defeated, and exhausted, even when you feel unappreciated, and undervalued. Soak up this goodness. It strengthens your resilience for the hard times to come, because those situations and those emotions will show up in your human life. What the poet Mary Oliver calls your one wild and precious life. To take a little time and deliberately cultivate goodwill towards yourself. Reconnecting with your child's desire, innocent desire to be happy. That's all, just happy. Letting this be part of your experience as an adult. This kindness undergirding your day. Supporting you. Especially when times are tough. And when you're ready, a long, slow inhalation, and retaining the breath for a long moment while you imagine the cells of your body completely absorbing the kindness that you've been developing. When you're ready, let the exhalation go with a sigh. And let your eyes come open if they've been closed. And bring your attention back to the screen, shifting your posture in any way that helps you to be comfortable. And we've got about a couple minutes for us to have a conversation. So if you've got a comment or a question, please unmute yourself and speak to us. If you need to go, that's completely understandable. Thank you for joining me. And I just want to remind you that we are building towards a mini online retreat, a kind of a workshop where we will take this learning about loving kindness and expand it and deepen it. And I would thoroughly welcome you to that practice. We'll let you know when it becomes set up. Otherwise, let's check in. Do you have questions, comments, suggestions, feedback? Because this is the way that I learn. I learn from you. And I'm happy to hear whatever you have to say. Positive is nice. I eat it up. Constructive, really helpful, because then I can adapt what I'm doing for people just like you. So if you've got something to say, I'm all ears and heart to hear it.
So thank you very much. I enjoyed it a lot. Here is me. I sometimes did this meditation on this beautiful land, but I think was much more intense for me now, that I really thought about me when I was a child and what way I talk to myself or going back. And you opened a lot for me. Thank you for this.
You're so welcome. So let me ask you, tell me how to say your first name, please.
Alois.
Alois. So when you connected with, or when that child came to mind, did you feel like you could connect with his desire to be happy?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. I'm so glad to hear that, because to be able to have that alive in us today is huge. We have so many reasons not to be happy that we need, like, these child warriors, if you will, that happiness is a good thing to continue to develop in our lives. And not only that, it's possible. And by the way, the happiness does not mean the absence of pain. It's like, the question becomes, how do we relate to our experience? And having that child's innocent desire for happiness is from my perspective, part of the wisdom of an adult. So thank you for your comment, Alois. Where are you, by the way? Where in the world?
In Austria and Europe.
Ah, splendid. I'm so glad.
In the beautiful mountains.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you. Let's check in. Are there any other comments, ideas, suggestions?
I would just agree with what Alois said, and then add to it that I thought that it was really nice to connect with the inner child, just because my inner child's expectations of what happiness meant are so different than the expectations I put on myself today. They were much simpler. So I thought that was a nice thing to bring out, and I really appreciated that.
Great. I'm so glad. So part of what I'm hoping is that as we continue doing these classes, we'll be able to recognize there are times in the day or circumstances where we do feel happy. I was speaking with a fellow the other day, and he said when he's riding his bike, there's a lot of happiness there. So our challenge, might be the right word, is to extend that into more and more of our day. And that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be bills and flat tires and burned meals. But how we respond to those situations can be so different when the base of happiness.
No, you won't hear him because you're.
So, team, I'm looking at the time. I'm seeing it's time for us to go very soon, but I wanted just to check in with if there's any last comment from you, and then pass it over to Adam to close off the session. Any last comment? Okay, Adam, it's all yours.
Thanks, Greg. One thing I just want to put into everyone's awareness, we have a special workshop this weekend. The workshop is it's an Ayurvedic workshop. The theme is Ayurvedic self-care, particularly with the external elements. So hair, skin, nails, teeth. Ayurveda has a lot of really beautiful insights that I carry with me just throughout my day, and when I'm choosing my food and when I'm choosing what I put on my skin, and just how I take care of my body in general. This will be led by a woman, and she's like one of those like celebrity Ayurvedic practitioners, and she's the Ayurvedic consultant for the Kardashians and all those. She's in that world, and so she has a really cool presence, and her team has a lot of really cool energy there in Santa Monica. So that would be awesome for everybody to join. That's included in the membership if you are a member. Otherwise, it's just the same price as the normal classes. With that, I think that's it. We're announcing next week. We're starting to put on the classes for next week. Mostly the way we're trying to structure the classes is so that there's an asana class followed by a meditation, so you can actually follow the traditional yogic sequence as it was originally intended. But I believe that's it on our end. Thank you guys. Again, it's so cool to see everybody here. And Greg, these classes are amazing.
Thank you, dear ones. I look forward to more with you. See you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Thank you.